let's talk about techniques. I've shown you story types, and again, these will all be on the blog. These slides will be on the blog, so you can go back and look at those examples again. But let's look at techniques, tools of the trade. So this is what a lot of bloggers and news producers use to give it that visual treatment for online storytelling. And when I say bloggers, you've heard me use the word bloggers and blogs a lot this time. I'm talking about news blogs. You know, people who are journalists. These are bloggers, writers for station sites that produce news. Okay, linking out. You've probably seen this. You've heard this many times, but linking out is an important aspect of online storytelling. You are directing people to your source of information, and especially you know, when you are reporting, you have those resources up on your computer. You are opening these tabs in your browser to research a story. They are there. And so if you are writing about them in your story, include them. Direct people to those links. This is a good, and link to things that might be difficult to find, like a government report or a page within a site that might be difficult to find. Not just home pages, because I can do that on Google, but just links that are harder to find, like a video on YouTube or something. I know there's generally a sense of reluctance to link out because you know, there's this fear that someone's leaving the site, but user habits have evolved. You know, if I were to click on this link, I wouldn't just click and then leave the site and then come back by hitting back. But what I would do is I would hit Command and then click on the link to open up a new tab in the browser. That's just how I use it. So I have several windows open where I can go back and forth and look at the actual report and the story. Also, you are helping the reader. I mean, imagine if there was this report from the Henry J. Kaiser Family Foundation, and I had to go find it. You know, I'm interested in the source information, so now you've sent me off to Google to go find this information. And I'm a bit annoyed because I, as a user, expect you to link to it now. That's just a common practice now. And if it's not in there, I may get annoyed. So keep that in mind. You want to help your reader find this information. But also keep in mind, it can be overdone. You know, I've seen sites where people will link to every proper noun, every place, every legislator's office. You know, just use it where you think it's relevant. You know, it's those things that would be harder to find on a simple Google search. Certainly, you know, if you're citing President Obama, I don't need links to whitehouse.gov every time. But if he's talking about an important bill, I'd like a link to that. And also, how you link is important too. So here, this contributor linked to the words "a report." Linking, it's used as a highlighting tool. It's also used for to help with search engine optimization. So what would be better is if instead of just a report, if maybe, you know, if this line were reworded, a fine synopsis of the healthcare reform issues, including the words healthcare reform and issues in what you link, could be more helpful than just seeing a report. I see in a lot of posts, you can find stuff here, and people will link to here and here, the words here and here, but you know, name your source. If it's an LA Times article or you know, a government report, like, and there's a name to that report, name that report and link to that. And then here's some more linking. Okay, aggregation. It's kind of a dirty word to some people, but it's gone mainstream. There's this quote here, "I love aggregation." I'm going to give you 3 seconds to think about who said that. Probably need more than 3 seconds because a lot of people have been saying that, but you know, maybe Arianna Huffington comes to mind. Actually, Bill Keller, he said this last year, the former executive editor of the New York Times. I think he says it in a great way. Aggregation is what editors do, what journalists have been doing for a long time. Grabbing that information and sharing it with the readers. It's pulling from the bounty of the information universe, and you hear the word aggregation and curation used interchangeably, and that's fine. I mean, they kind of mean the same thing, but at the end of the day, it's really good aggregation and good curation is really about acting as a filter for your audience, saying, this is what I think you would be interested in. I may not have reported it, but I think you'd be interested in that. Like with a two-way example, people who go to NPR are interested in Washington issues. So if a former senator dies, we think you'd be interested in that, even though it's being reported by somebody else. And like with the KUT example, where you saw that Wells Dunbar had used various sources from the Texas Tribune and NPR.org, aggregation allows you to open up your source list. Mark Memmott has this great line. Mark Memmott of the Two-Way has this great line. I have thousands of reporters at my disposal, none of whom I have to talk to. So again, you've opened up your source list. Your newsroom of 4 has just expanded to thousands because you have these sources to aggregate from. So again, here's that two-way example where Mark's doing, practicing great standards here by naming the source. The Anchorage Daily News is reporting. He is pulling the most relevant information from that story that he thinks that his audience is interested in. And further down this post, I know you can't see it here, he's citing another source. He actually has a report from a TV station. So he's pulling that information from multiple sources because he thinks that his audience would definitely be interested in news about Ted Stevens. And so this is the mind shift again, the same post about virtual field trips. What this reporter has done is he's aggregated stories from EdTech Digest, from Iowa City Press, and Scholastic's website, and he's created his own story. He's made this a list of 5 things from pulling from other sources. Certainly he could have come across his EdTech Digest story and said, here's an interesting story about how students are communicating internationally using Skype. But what he did was he pulled from multiple sources and created his own story. Bolded subheads, you use them. This is another great way to help your online audience, to help your online reader. So again, back to this healthcare reform Supreme Court story. This is a heavy topic. There are a lot of, especially when you're talking about the Supreme Court, there are a lot of issues here to sort out. And of course, we have this explainer, but we also have bolded subheads. So I want to know about the Anti-Injunction Act. So I know to jump straight to that bolded subhead. Imagine if you had all this text with no bolded subheads. It would be hard to find exactly what's being discussed. It's really a way to break up the information and direct people to just exactly what you're looking for. Bullet points. Again, with this KUT example from the school board changes, the school board meeting. I mean, if you were to write this whole story as, like an 800-word story, it would be exhausting on the eye. You may not even get through the whole thing. So to have bullet points saying exactly what was adopted makes it so much easier to consume that information than just having 800 words.